channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and today is part 4 and our last day of our B6641 Sew Along. I hope you guys have had a wonderful time. I really had a really good time filming this. It can get lonely in the sewing room, and just being able to talk to the camera while I'm explaining things, I really enjoyed that. It makes me want to do some in like live classes actually, because I was really enjoying quote unquote teaching while I was sewing. I guess it's supposed to be commentary I have going on in my head when I'm sewing here by myself, but it was nice to be able to speak out loud to the camera. Anyway, I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Today's video is shorter than the last two. I apologize for the length of those videos. I tried to cut them down as much as possible, speeding along the parts where I'm just sewing, but I wanted you guys to literally see me doing every step like of the way. I mean, yeah, because it's a sew along. So hopefully you could just fast forward if there was any parts you didn't need or didn't want to hear me jabbering about, but I apologize for the length of those. Those did get long. Again, today is a little bit shorter, and we'll have our finished jackets. And I spoke about it in maybe just one of the other sew along videos, but I am starting a hashtag, and it's TK Sew Alongs for Tomcat Sew Along, and I'm gonna put that hashtag across here and also put it down in the description box. But tag your makes on Instagram with that hashtag so that we can all see what the everyone's making, because that's kind of the fun of sew alongs, to be able to show off your finished make at the end. I'm in love with this jacket. I love this jacket so much. I'm really loving it. So again, I hope all the tutorials were helpful. I hope the sew along was helpful for you all. Leave comments because we can have wonderful conversation going forward. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because I have so many fun things planned going forward. I am just on planning fire right now between organizing my pattern stash, and I've kind of had to completely redo a spring and summer wardrobe for myself, which, I mean, when you're a seamstress and that's like your outlet is to create, that's not all bad. I mean, it kind of stinks, but anyway. So yeah, so I've got a whole bunch of fun things planned for the upcoming months, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss anything. I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you on Friday with Sew My Style, with my Sew My Style reveal. I've been filming all these all at once, but yes, Friday will be the Sew My Style reveal, which will be the cardigans. So I will see you Friday, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And don't forget to use that hashtag as you finish your jackets. I'll see you all soon. Bye. Okay guys, last day of this sew along. Let's finish these jackets. I'm gonna do one step with you guys, and then I'm gonna refer you back to the bagged lining tutorial that went up, let's see. I'm doing this all so far in advance, I have to think about this. Last Wednesday, I believe. It was either last Wednesday or last Friday that this tutorial went up on doing the bag lining. So I'm going to send you to that one when we get to that point. But what we are going to do, first of all, when we sewed our facing to our lining last time, and I forgot to do this step, the pattern wants us to clip our facing. You know, we stopped at that dot that I notched on the facing, so our facing and lining are not attached at either bottom. It wants us to clip through the seam allowance on the facing only to that dot, or to the end of that stitching, because you are going to fold the seam allowance the rest of the way back the 5/8 and press it. Okay? So that's going to help us when we go to sew this to the jacket. So I'm going to do that step real quick. You're going to do that on both sides, the facing with the, I also noticed when I was editing yesterday that I was holding things up too high. So I'm going to try not to do that today. So we're just going to fold that little section back on both sides of the facing. So I will clip this one as well and fold that back and press it. And then we are going to attach our facing to our jacket. And then we are going to bag our lining. So I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so now we have that little part of the facing that wasn't sewn to the lining. It's been folded back on itself, just the seam allowance, 5/8. And now we are going to attach this to the front of our jacket. So I'm going to pin this all the way around the front, around the neckline, and all the way to the other front. And you'll notice on this front piece where there's this jog, that's basically where we're going to stop. So I'm gonna pin this to this real quick, and then we can talk about it. Okay, I have things pinned, and you'll notice I'm actually using pins on this one, but I just want to make a couple of notes. So the bottom of your facing, and this is the part that we have folded under, is actually going to match up. So you have this weird jog in the front of your coat that keep those raw edges together. So you're going to have the coat is going to extend down. That's actually your hem allowance that'll get folded up later. So we're going to start, and we're going to start sewing right at this folded edge at 5/8 of an inch. Actually, I think it's maybe the other way, but anyway, we're gonna sew, and I'm gonna sew with my facing up. Since everything is interfaced the same, it doesn't really matter which side, but we want the facing up because we're gonna follow this mark when we get there. So we're gonna sew 5/8 of an inch, try not to hold this up too much, and then when we get to this point, we're gonna sew down to this point and up to this point, and then back around. This is gonna cause the notch. We're gonna clip into this when it's time. And continue on around. The same, you get to this one, do the same. You're gonna, sew to there and there. And then we're going to end at the fold of the other side. And actually I did that backwards. I'm actually gonna start on this side and go the other way, but you get the idea. So I'm gonna sew that together real quick, and then I'm gonna talk to you about clipping and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, I have my facing sewn to my jacket front. So now we get to clip, and then I'm going to send you to the other area for how to, oh my gosh, pack a lining. I need more coffee. So I'm going to show you my biggest trick, and I don't have it over here. Hold on one second. Okay, so first things first, when we're clipping, you need to go in and clip, oops, right to, not through, these points that you've made. So you're just going to clip right up to, carefully, and then I would suggest clipping a little bulk out of there because chances are that's pretty bulky, and then clipping these catty corner just to get the bulk out of those points. Now for the rest of the jacket, so I'm going to do this on the other side too, but for the rest of the jacket, guys, I use pinking shears to do all of my clipping and grading when it comes to thicker jackets. I also trap my jacket under my presser foot. So I'm going to go through and clip the entire edge of the jacket, and I'm gonna leave, I don't know, a little less than 1/4 of an inch probably all the way around, because I do want to be able to get in there and kind of press that open a little bit with my tailor's point, just to give that a nice crisp edge when I do turn it, but I want a lot of this bulk away. So I just take my pinking shears, good old pinking shears, and I just start cutting. And I will show you about how much I like to leave, especially these curved areas. So this basically does your notching for you and helps with the grading. This is a lot of layers. So I leave about that much. So about 1/4 of an inch. So then I can still get in there and press that open really nice. And then when I turn it and actually press it, it'll be a nice crisp edge. So I'm just gonna go around and carefully, you don't wanna accidentally cut something you're not supposed to, cut all of my edges all the way around the neck, and then I'm gonna cut my other triangle in here, and then we'll come back and talk about next step. Okay, so I have a gigantic mess at my feet here. This was a really hard fabric to cut with those pinking shears because it's so nebby. So now I'm going to go over to the machine, and I am just going to try and press as much as I can this entire seam open, especially my points here at my little V's. And then I'm going to turn it over and give it a good press right way out. And then we are going to, I'm going to send you over for the bagging a lining tutorial. And then we'll come back and finish the jacket. Okay. Okay, so now our jacket is so close to being done, you can almost taste it. So I bagged the lining, and you should have that tutorial. You should have seen that tutorial already on how to do that. And hopefully, I'm really hoping that made sense. I'm very nervous about that one because bagging a lining can be super confusing. But I'm going to go over now. So the only steps we have left to do are to secure the hem, and I have a cheater way to do that. It's up to you. You can either go in now and catch stitch all your hems out because we still have the hole in our lining, so you can still get in there easily. You can either go in now and catch stitch your hems to your underlining, which is the technical proper way to do it, or I'm going to show you a cheater way here in a bit that actually a lot of ready-to-wear clothing uses. So we need to do that, fix our hems, and then we need to do some hand sewing. We got to finish our lining with some hand sewing. And then it's just a matter of attaching our buttonhole on the front and our buttons on the front and on our sleeves. And then we are finished, folks. A good press and you will have a finished jacket. So let's really quickly, this is going to be kind of a short video today. I want to go over the areas where we have to hand sew. I'm going to sew up this hole here in the back last, or in the side last. So we need to hand sew here at the front. I'm going to put a pin. We need to hand sew here at the front. We're going to hand sew the facing where it's open, right here. The lining will get stitched down all the way to the bottom. Moving along. We've got this corner here of our miter that needs to be hand stitched down. So I'll put a pin there. Then here at the top of our vent, we have this, I need more table space, folks. We've got this area that's all poofy up here. That's just going to get tucked in. Make sure that your vent is lying nice and flat so that you don't accidentally sew something too tight and then have it pulling on the right side. Ask me how I know that one. And again, you're going to have a lot of extra like fullness here in the jacket, but that's needed so that you can move. Your lining doesn't restrict your movement. So you're just going to kind of make it work. But you're going to slip stitch across the top here and then down where it wasn't attached because we couldn't get the machine in there. Okay. Moving on to the other corner, you got to do the same thing over here with this facing. So that gets hand stitched down. Then, with our sleeves, I find just turning them, we're only doing things here at the vent, so if you want to just kind of finagle it to where your vent is on top. I've got some stray threads. All right, so for our under flap, we're just gonna fold that. There was a little area we couldn't get in with the machine, and then a little area here that just need to be hand stitched down. And then up here at the top, and it's just like with the back, you're gonna have this weird floofy area. So just make that look as nice and neat as you can. And lining likes to be very fiddly. You can also press this with an inch of your life if you'd like. But again, hand sewing, good gracious. There we go. Hand sewing gives you a lot of freedom, I feel like, to make those necessary adjustments as you go. Bimberg is great. All right, there we go. So you will stitch there, and then here at your mitered corner there, you will stitch there as well. So just make sure everything is tucked in nice and neat, and you'll just hand stitch that little corner there too. Okay? So that's all we have to do there. And you're just going to do that with a slip stitch. And I'm not going to show that on camera just because that is a very easy thing to do. So before I do, you'll want to go ahead and hand stitch, but I'm going to show you the cheater way for keeping your hem from falling out. All right, on your sleeves, you are going to have your buttons are going to be attached, and there's no buttonholes on the sleeve. We're just attaching the buttons straight through. So that's going to keep everything on the front part of the, or the back part of the sleeve all where it should be. Those buttons are going to keep that in place. For the rest, I literally am going to stitch in the ditch, right in the seam line. And I realize this is a total cheater method. Oh, let's go this way. And I kind of push the lining up out of the way because I don't want to accidentally tack it down. This works really well with lofty fabrics, maybe not so much if you're using a cotton sateen. But if you stitch into that seam line, you literally cannot see it at all. I caught my lining a little bit, but that will dump over itself. And there you go. I'm going to do that on both sleeves. So I'll do it on both sleeves, and I'm literally going to do it at every seam line. And that's, yeah, every seam line. All the way across the bottom. And I'm just going to stitch up, you know, 3/4 an inch maybe Well, maybe not an inch. I don't want to catch the lining. But I'm just going to stitch in the ditch all the way along the hem of the coat and, like I said, on both sleeves. And then I'm going to hand stitch all of this stuff closed, and then we'll come back and finish the jacket. Okay guys, the lining is in. I'm gonna zoom in here. I closed up the side seam. There it is. You can see I just pinched the seam allowance together and sewed it up. That way, if you ever need to get back in to make alterations, it's really easy to do. There we go. Okay. So there she is. The lining is in. I have hand stitched. Flip her around. I have hand stitched my lining. My mannequin is bigger than I am now, so it doesn't pull across my button hips like this. But yeah, lining is in, ready to go. So now we are going to take this over to the other sewing machine, my home sewing machine, and we're going to do a buttonhole and buttons. I can sew buttons on that machine. So I'm going to take you over there, and then we are finished, guys. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to put our buttons on, and then I'm going to sew my buttonhole, which is a little counterintuitive, but I have everything marked. I've got my buttonholes marked in the friction pen. It'll go away. I've got my button placement marked on the other side of the jacket. Just as a note, your buttonhole for a women's jacket, your buttonhole goes on the right side of your jacket, right side when being worn, and then your button goes on the left side when being worn for a women's jacket. I've made that mistake on a men's jacket before. We call it my husband's flannel blouse because I put the buttonholes on the wrong side for a man's shirt. So anyway, and then I've got my buttons marked right here for the sleeve. And the buttons literally get sewn through all layers on the vent. This isn't a functioning vent. You actually could have sewed this differently since it's not a functioning vent. It is a functioning vent if you put buttonholes and buttons, but we're just going to sew our buttons through all thicknesses on this. That's what the pattern calls for, and I will never unbutton them. So we're just going to sew the buttons straight through on this. You could definitely sew these buttons on by hand. This is my Janome Memory Craft 9700. I've had this for 8 years now, and it sews buttons on. It's got this fun little button presser foot, and it basically just, the feed dogs go down and it just does a zigzag stitch in the holes. So that's what I'm going to use. So in order to do that, I'm going to put my sleeves, well, here. Let's do the front of the jacket first, and then I'm going to turn my sleeves inside out so I can sew on the sleeve buttons. Ugh. So I have these nice little pearlized buttons that we're going to use because I kind of wanted them to meld into the fabric. You could tape these down to keep them in place. I just eyeball it. That's kind of the name of the game, I feel like, with me. And I can see, you have to have it on the button setting. I can see my friction mark there, so we're good. All right, and I like to always hand crank just to make sure, and I'm not, that I'm far enough apart because I can adjust that. All right, we're good now. I like to go twice to really get it on there. I also want to note, I use color thread to match the button for the button, and then I will use pink for the buttonhole. I don't know why it took me so long for that to dawn on me that made sense. I mean, unless you're going, if you want your thread to be a feature on your button, if that's something that's part of a design element. I don't know why that took me so long, though, to figure out. Okay, and just like that, I have a button. Clip my threads, and there we go. That button is on. We're going to ignore that phone. Sorry about that. I tell ya, no one ever calls me except for telemarketers, and that's probably who that is. Okay, for my sleeves, I'm going to turn them inside out just so I can get in here. Now again, if you wanted to sew these by hand, that is absolutely fine. If you wanted to baste your vent together just to make sure everything stays in line, that's also absolutely fine. I'm just going to start with the all the buttons are on, and so now we are going to sew a buttonhole. So I have to make a couple of changes to my machine, and then I'm going to give you guys some tips. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've switched things around on my machine. As you can see, I put, actually the second button, I shouldn't have sewn my button on yet because I still needed it for the buttonhole. So I do an automatic buttonhole function on my machine. And so I use the button here in the back, and this gets bigger and also smaller depending on your size button. This is just about as big as it will go. I've clicked it in too, but yeah. Okay, so you put this on. I'm sure you people know. I mean, again, every single machine's going to be different, so you need to, if your machine does do buttonholes, you just have to check your owner's manual. But then I pull this guide down, and that's going to measure how far it's going from my buttonhole so that it'll hit this that I've adjusted with that. Anyway, it all makes sense here in a second. Okay, I start at the front of the jacket, and my machine goes up and then back. So you got to keep that in mind. I guess I could start on this end. Well, no, because I like to start on the edge, because even though my buttonhole marking is this long, I may have a little bit different size button, and I don't want it to be set too far back. So I'm going to start, it's more important for me that the buttonhole starts a certain amount away from the edge, so I'm actually going to start, so it's kind of awkward when you're sticking things into the machine. You kind of have to go backwards like this. But I'm just going to line up that edge. And then I also like to use a water-soluble stabilizer. So this is an embroidery product. People use this for embroidery things. I just find it gives a really, especially on thick fabric like this, it just gives a really nice finish. And all I do is slide it underneath the work, fold it over on top, and you can see through it. So I can still see my buttonhole markings. And then when you're finished, it rips away super easily, and then anything that's left goes away with water. Just like a wet, just like a wet washcloth. All right, so we're gonna put this into the machine. And again, I've switched my thread color to pink because I want this to blend in a little bit more. And I'm just wanting to make sure I've got everything in there straight. Okay, and then I literally just hit the pedal. There I have a buttonhole. All right, I'm gonna take you over and show you how I finish off and cut my buttonholes open. And then, see, look, that's already pulled away. Look how easily that rips away. And then we'll be finished with the jacket. All right, so let's go over to the ironing board and I'll show you how I stabilize this. Okay, I use Fray Check. This is a product by Dritz, although many companies make Fray Check. It's not really, I can get this in bulk at wallwack.com and I'll leave a link to that. Oh, there we go. Link to that down below. But I Fray Check my button, and I'm going to try and hold this and do this one-handed. Oh, the multi-talents of YouTube filming. Okay, so I just put squeeze right in the center of that buttonhole. And then, so it doesn't get crusty, you want to hit it with the iron. And you'll notice that my friction pin went away too. All right. Ooh, sorry. Fog on the lens. And then I do the same on the back. It's really kind of hard to see there. Okay. And now I'm going to take you over, steam on the lens, take you over and show you how I cut these open. Okay, this is a buttonhole chisel, also purchased at Wallwack. Its sole purpose is to cut things open, to cut buttonholes open. It is so easy. Now it comes with a little wooden block that you can put underneath your work. I just use my self-healing cutting mat. That seems to work fine. But all I'm going to do is carefully set that into my buttonhole and push down. This is hard to do this through the viewfinder. Push down. You can be careful not to cut your stitches. There you go. Just like that. It makes the most beautiful buttonhole. I highly recommend one of these. This is definitely a sewing tool that you don't really think about, but that's super handy. So there we go. We have finished Butterick 6641. Guys, I can't wait to see all the ones that you guys have made. And yeah, I'll see you next time.